Welcome back, everybody. Roger Porcelli here, aka Pork Chop, and today's bench topic is pickup shoes. So there is zero question in my mind that pickups are an often overlooked item when it comes to getting your car set up just right. They hold the key to not only power, but handling on most tracks.
I am Vince Clortho, Keymaster of Gozer. Volka Sildro, our Lord of the Cebulia. Are you the gatekeeper?
Not only that, but how many times have you seen a competitor lose their shoe in the middle of a race? That just can't happen if you want to have a good result. With the tips we're about to go over, you'll be able to hopefully never lose a shoe again, dial power in and out of your car as needed, and also with the same adjustment, be able to make your car feel like it's handling better or behaving better at the very least. So with all of that out of the way, let's get started. So today we're going to work with a Fusion pickup shoe, a G shoe, and a Viper shoe. The G and Viper shoe are pretty much the same thing as far as getting them set up. And the same thing with the Fusion shoe. We will do an extra step with the Fusion shoe just to get it prepped and hopefully not hang up as much on its hanger. So as I said, I do the same thing on all three of these shoes, and I'm going to take this curve out as much as I can of each of those shoes. And the way I do that is I take a flat tip pliers, I stick the shoe in there, I push it down as flat as I can and as close to the top as I can, and I squeeze, and then I push it down again, and then I will press down on the shoe surface here to take the curve out, and it'll be a much sharper angle when I'm done. Hopefully you can see that. And not only is it a sharper angle, but it's also bent back a little bit more, which will keep it on the tab and cause the shoe not to fall off as much. So the Viper shoe is bent. I'm going to go ahead and do the same process to the Fusion and G shoe. So again, grabbing the shoe as flat as I can and as close, I said top earlier, but it's actually to the bottom of the shoe. I'm just trying to get this pushed into the plier as deep as I can. Squeeze and then press down on the top surface of the shoe to take the curve out and make this a sharp angle. Make this a sharp angle, and also bend the hanger part of the shoe back. That's the Fusion shoe. We'll do the same thing to the G shoe now. You can see it's a very gradual curve, and when I get done, some of that will be taken out and it'll be a sharper curve, or less of a curve. It's pretty much a right angle at that point, and also swept back a little bit more, again, to keep the shoe on the car and not falling off. If some of you are curious as to why I don't have a T-Cat shoe here, I've already done a video in the past on how to set those up, and I'll link that in the description down below. The next thing we need to do is work on the flatness of the shoe. We don't want the shoe to be bowed at all, whether up or down. It needs to be nice and flat for the racing surface so that we can get the best power out of the shoe as possible. And also, if the shoe is bowed, there's a higher chance that it can catch on the rail and kick your car out of the slot, which we don't want. And this process of sanding the shoe is more important on the Fusion shoe, the newer Viper shoes, and less important on the older Viper shoes and the G shoes. They're already pretty flat. But the process is the same. We'll take the shoes that we've already taken the curve out of the front, use our trusty little honing stone, take the shoe. I like to hold pressure with my thumb right up here where the hanger goes, press down and hold the back as such, and just sand. Like I said, this is a G shoe. There really isn't much of a need for that. It's already pretty flat. And there is a little bit of a bow there, but not much of one. It looks pretty good already. But take a little bit more here and hold this stone steady so I can put a little more pressure on that. And there we go. That looks good. Set that aside. Grab the Viper shoe. This is an older Viper shoe, so it's going to be pretty flat, but we'll see what it looks like. Little bit of a low spot in there, but a little more sanding and that'll come out. I'm talking about that right there. It didn't really hit very well. So take some more out from there. And again, this is all to ensure that we get a good straight line from the rail on the shoe, which will make sure that we get the best power to the car. There we go. That's nice and flat now. Should get a good straight line when we put it on the track. Fusion shoes next. Same thing. Now the G and the Viper shoes, they're pretty much done. I won't do anything else to those. They'll go straight on the car just like that. The Fusion shoe, there is one other thing that I like to do to it, and I'll get to that in a second after we get this flat. Let's see how that looks. Almost there. It's a little low spot up here towards the top. So and yeah, I tend to sand the tip of my thumb down when I do this too much. Alright, that's really good. Nice and flat all the way across. Should be good to go. So like I said, with the Fusion shoes, there's another step we have to take care of. And what that is down here in the hook that goes on the hanger, there's oftentimes a burr on both sides, here and here. So what I'll do is I'll take my Dremel and a dentist bit or something similar, some sort of grinding tip, and I'll turn the Dremel on, turn the power down a little bit, and I'll just take the bit into the hook, back and forth until I can feel that there's no burr there, and I'll work up the edge of that shoe here as well. And I'll take a little bit of material out in that hook just so it's a nice finish. Okay, so now that we got the shoes ready to go on the car, let's talk about what I will do to the shoes after I run a few laps and see what they look like and take note of how the car is feeling. Alright, so here's a car I've run a few laps on the track. It had okay power and it was handling very well. So what I've noticed when I took the car off the track and looked at the shoes is this shoe right here is burning up towards the top. Usually that's indicative of the shoe not having enough tension. And since the car was handling and it seemed like it was down on power, that also leads to that conclusion that it is a little too low on tension. Okay, so since we think that the shoe tension on the driver's side is a little light, we're going to put it on the spring force meter and see what kind of numbers we get. There's the burnt shoe again on the driver's side, so we'll measure that side first. Right around 7. That is a little light. I like it in the mid to high teens. So let's reset this. Measure the passenger side, see where we're at. There we go, mid-teens, 16. That's where I like the shoes to be. I tend to run tension a little bit higher than most people, but I also set the front end a little bit higher, so I'm trying to compensate for that by setting the tension higher. Basically, I'm setting my car up around the pickup tension. So in order to correct that and gain a little bit of tension, I'll do one of a few different things. I will either spread the spring a little bit to add tension, I'll try a plated spring, which will add a little bit more tension, or I'll go up a spring, meaning from 8 to 9, 9 to 10, 10 to 11, etc. So as I said earlier, there's a few different ways to add tension. The first one we're going to try is just spreading the spring apart. So we'll take the spring out, just going to grab both sides and pull it apart a little bit, and that should give us a little bit more tension. If you're trying to make a fine adjustment, this is the way to go. So we'll see where we're at now. Put that back in. And this is an unplated spring in here. And it should be a 9 because I usually always use a 9 thou spring on the driver's side in a super stock car. So let's measure that again and see what we got. Okay, so now we went from 7 to 9.3, 7.5 to 9.1. So we gained about 1.5 grams. That'll make a decent adjustment, but it's still probably going to be a little bit light. If I was to take this car back on the track and it felt better, I would stop there. If it still felt like it needed a little bit more, I would go ahead and probably try a plated 9th spring to add a little bit more tension. That may or may not equal the 9.1 or 9 that we were at right there. We could pull the 9 apart and probably get to where we want it to be, which is about, 16 or so. The overall goal with this car was to fix the burning pickup shoe, which was robbing it of power. In this case, it was because we had too little pickup shoe tension on the shoe. On other tracks, it could be because of uneven rails or dirty rails. Dirty rails is probably the biggest cause of shoes burning on most of the tracks. Now, if you had plenty of power and your shoe wasn't burning, but your car isn't handling, you do the opposite. You start by compressing the spring to take a little bit of tension out. Then you can take a plated spring out if you have one in there and go to an unplated spring of the same size, 9 to 9, 8 to 8, etc. And the last resort being going from a 9 to an 8 or an 8 to a 7. Basically, when you're trying to correct handling, you want to set the spring to the least amount of tension possible before the shoe starts to burn. The last thing I want to talk about today regarding pickup shoes is how to correct a shoe being heel or being toe heavy. So 9 out of 10 times when you set up a new shoe with a new hanger and the hanger not being bent or tweaked at all, it's going to be pretty heel heavy. So the way I like to correct that is to get a hanger, grab it down here, make sure you're nice and even, and then what we're going to do is bend the hanger forward so we get a nice kink right here. This used to go straight up and down, and now it's bent forward. And what that is going to do is it's going to tuck the shoe up towards the chassis a little more and create a more even line across the shoe and less heel heavy here. If you go too far, the shoe is only going to hit up here, and that's what we call toe heavy. Basically, what you want is the shoe to be nice and even all the way across. Sometimes you want it to be a little heel heavy. If you have uneven rails, it's better to have the shoe be heel heavy so that you're not going to lose power anywhere on the track. All right, that about wraps up another video. If you liked it, be sure to hit the subscribe and bell buttons down below so that you will be notified of future videos that I'll be doing. Let me know in the comments down below what you would like to hear about from me, and I will try my best to get those videos done. I will also put links to the tools that I used in the description down below, so if you need any tools, you can have an easy way to find them. With that, keep it in the slot, and I will see you next time.